And the other reason is that we probably are misrecognizing a lot of dispositions, a lot of personal character, and calling them skills. And one of them you mentioned as well in what you described with that very scary situation of having no rules and not knowing what's going to happen next. And one of the things you mentioned was communication. Yeah, and this is often classified as one of the 21st century skills, right? Or 21st century competencies. Again, I'm starting to reconsider this. Right? Communication is, at the very least, between two people, and they are trying to make meaning together, right? Now, the thing is, if we talk about language, we talk about the vocabulary, we talk about the grammar, this can be taught because there are fixed rules.
Yes.
There are fixed grammatical rules. There is a syntax. There is the vocabulary that you need to build up. And there's a way to structure sentences. There's a correct way to sentence a structure. There's a wrong way to sentence a structure. So the language can be taught. And without language, communication is not possible, right? So that, to that extent, just like the fixed chocolate cake recipe, this can be taught. But can communication be taught in the classroom? Because effective communication will first and foremost require an empathy and humility to want to understand what the other person is saying. And having that humility and empathy will then allow the person to first and foremost listen before rushing to shove his or her idea down the other person's throat. So that is I feel a personality, a characteristic, a disposition that can be cultivated, but it cannot be taught.
Yeah.
Right? Because that feeling for another person and recognizing this other person as a human being, it requires the environment where that's how everyone behaves. That's the culture. Everyone, the school or the environment is such that everybody listens first before they say something. And so it is a culture, it's an environment, and it can cultivate that kind of disposition, but it cannot be taught. Right?
Yes.
Because you can't teach empathy, you can't teach humility. There isn't a 3-step formula to become more humble tomorrow, right? So yeah, so I'm forced to reconsider a lot of the stuff that I used to say to teachers as well during my workshops. One of the things I say a lot is that everything that is being done in the classroom by the teacher has to be deliberate. It has to be planned. You can't have that ambiguity in the intentions of what the teacher is trying to achieve. Well, guess what? That's totally opposite to what real life is all about. So, yeah,
so
say sorry to all the teachers who attended my workshop before.
I think one of the possible solutions here, or maybe we should we try to list the biggest problems of educational systems first? So first is this, not willingness to fail, right? Or not giving any chances for the students to fail. So this would be one. Two, what would be two here? Like
I think
maybe the curriculum itself. I mean, in terms of the learning outcomes that are planned here, they in the very beginning, they are not correct in lots of times, right? So so okay, the curriculum itself, the learning outcomes, the intended learning outcomes are not correct because I'd like to mention just a couple of things here, like financial literacy, for example. We don't teach anyone to do that. or maybe health literacy. Can we call it health literacy? Like conscious attitude towards your own health, towards your own body, right? We don't do that. Or maybe some other things like meaning making in this world, right? These kind of things. So we don't have these things in the list of intended learning outcomes, right? So these to me means that the curriculum is wrong. I mean, it's not completely right. Of course, there are some great things there, like maths, but it's not complete, at least, right? So curriculum failure. What else can we list here?
And I think it is, I think I will almost call this the promise of education.
Yeah.
Right, because increasingly, especially in higher education, many universities are under pressure to ensure that their graduates are employable. Right, so employability becomes one of the front-running intentions of university education. So it is almost, I mean, universities are almost being forced to promise that after you do my degree, you are going to get an awesome job with an awesome salary, and I think that's over promising, because perhaps universities should be promising their students, you'll become a better person when you are done and you graduate. And because you are a better person, you have more empathy, you are then able to communicate better, you have resilience, you are therefore able to take failures better. And because of that, whatever life has to throw at you, you are now ready to face life, right? So instead of promising skills, instead of promising knowledge, I think especially knowledge is the worst thing to promise, I feel. Right. I mean, even back in 2011, when I had the opportunity to work with the teachers in Kazan, I already mentioned that if we think that teachers are supposed to be the water tap, and so students are the empty cup, we are trying to fill the students with water, we are doomed, because at best the teacher can be the tap. But guess what? Google is a waterfall. Right? We can never compete with that. Google can give a lot more knowledge, a lot more information, and at a much faster speed. So what should we be promising instead? And I feel that, well, coming back to the impossibility of education, I think one of the other difficulties we have now is that we are promising the students something that we can't deliver. Yeah, and so we should be promising them something else. We shouldn't be promising them skills that are going to be relevant to succeeding in life. Probably we should promise them that you will be in an environment that will make you a better person. And because you're a better person, you're more likely to contribute to your community. And because of your contributions, you're going to be fine. Yeah.
I like this approach by Edward de Bono, his parallel thinking, remember, right? I do like this. I do like to use this approach, parallel thinking, when thinking about this, say, promise of the educational system. My dream is to have such systems, or maybe at least institutions, that would be able to provide both, or maybe like all of the promises that we are making. Say, the knowledge, the skills, the real world skills, the competencies, the thinking skills, and all of them. And at the same time, it would have the appropriate culture to bring up, all these better persons there. I think it's possible. I really believe it's possible to create this kind of environment where we would be achieving all these.
For sure, it is possible, and the reality is that out in the real world, there are organizations that are already successful in doing this. Immediately, the first example that comes to my mind is the design firm IDEO. Very often accredited with being the founders of design thinking. Yeah. But the very famous video of them redesigning the shopping cart over 5 days, right? And that's kind of what shot them to fame many years ago. And I remember this, and it's coming back to me now. In the year 2002, when I was a trainee teacher in NIE, National Institute of Education here in Singapore, I was being trained to be a design and technology teacher. Right. And being someone who have never designed a single thing my entire life, the design part was tough, right? Coming up with new ideas, then trying to facilitate and teach students how to come up with their new ideas as well, that was always going to be tough. And so when I discovered this video of IDEO redesigning the shopping cart in 5 days, it was like, whoa, fantastic. And I started taking notes, right? And step one, what did they do? Brainstorming. Then step two, they go out, do research. Yeah, step two. I was so excited, and I'm like, oh, awesome, and if the professionals are doing this, then this process, nothing is going to be wrong with it, right? And so I showed my students the video as well. Look, all the things I'm teaching you, the professionals are doing it as well. So you need to do this. But the reality is, step one is brainstorming. But then nothing's coming out of them, right? We all know step one is brainstorming, but the guys at IDEO, their ideas are just flowing and they are scribbling, they are doodling on the walls. But my students were like, teacher, why am I supposed to be drawing here? So step one didn't work. And when I went back to NIE and I spoke to my mentor and I showed him the video, the first thing he did was stare at me and go like, why are you showing this to students? What is the design process, isn't it? He said, no. It's about culture. It's about a culture of design. It's about an environment where, well, in the founder of IDEO's words, where the crazies live. And this is a place that encourages people to be crazy. They talk about asking for forgiveness and not permission. But do we have that culture? Do we have that environment in our schools? And I was teaching in a secondary school. The question is, so what were the students doing when they were in primary school? What were they taught to do when they were in primary school? Right? And so then in the absence of all these environmental and cultural factors, well, of course, step one, brainstorming, and nothing's coming out, right? Because they are still trying to second guess, what is the correct idea? Right? So what is that? What is the correct thing I should be putting up on the flip chart paper? And before I know what is correct, I'm not going to do anything on that piece of paper, right? So it is, as much as we could distill that process, that ABCD, but before that ABCD could even work, right? So many things else that are cultural, environmental, that enables that process to work, right? Failing which that process is not going to work.
I really believe that this idea of culture is crucial in terms of making educational systems really work. That's actually one of the reasons why one of our last discussions that we had here was about educational culture, and we were using Hofstede's model of cultures to analyze the culture in different countries. And I do believe that, yeah, we should be focusing on these side of things instead of only, focusing on the, technologies or the methods that we are applying in our educational projects and work.